So Robert, I want to ask you a question. I mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
Okay, say you got that teen that's selling drugs,
Right.
and he don't want to work at Burger King.
Right.
We know that he doesn't really see his life expectancy at no more than 30. So how can you explain it to
the
him?
thing that I try to communicate with him. I say, it seems as if he's been taught that material wealth, materialism, is more important than his life. And if when you define your life in those ways, then you act out accordingly. Now, if you think that having a Benz or having Acura and having jewelry and having all those things and fighting for those things is important, then we have to go back to the beginning and say, well, how does society view those things? So now society views those things as being powerful and being respectful, to have those things. So what I think we need to do is that, okay, if we're going to have a conflict resolution, or we're going to have morals and values for these kids, then we need to set the same type of rules and regulations for our society and say, okay, well, material wealth is not it, but we're not going to do that because that's too hard. That's too hard to do, because then other people won't have to give up what they need to give up, and we're going to have to have some changing of values and changes of morals. But we don't want to do that. What we want to do is, all too often, is we want to look at the kid and say, man, you a problem and everything. But we don't want to. What we don't want to address is the historical problem of what's been going on, the historical problem of dealing with materialism, of being powerful, what that defines as being powerful, and how those people who in power define that, and then how it's acted out in this society. And that's one of the real things. I remember one time somebody said, well, they asked this guy, why did you rob the bank? He said, that's where the money at. That the man understands. He understands that's what is going on. And we got to look at the perspective of people who are poor and everything. We just can't look at a person who jacks a car or who sells drugs as this evil aberration of society and everything. We need to look at it as if, say, well, what is going on with this person who is poor and everything? Because a person who is rich, for the most part, don't steal like the person who is poor. They may embezzle money, they may cause a savings and loan scandal and everything to get more money, but a person who is in a situation, who lives over town, for the most part, they're not dirt poor or Liberty City, then they have to look at other means of trying to acquire money, trying to acquire wealth. And if that's what they're trying to do, that can be defined in all kinds of ways, and that can be acted out in all kinds of ways, and particularly with the drug selling, with the jacking of cars and everything. And you will hear them. It's all about getting mine. It's mine. It's mine. It's not yours. It's theirs. But you're trying to make your money off of them. And I think that needs to be communicated. And it should never be a kind of like a knee-jerk solution to let's have a curfew, or let's have it should always be something that we have, that it's like a kind of holistic type of approach to solving this problem.
Right. Now, I understand what you're saying, and it sounds like it's coming really from like a financial thing, like how they're looking for financial growth. But what about the kids that's riding down the street and firing into a group of people?
Yeah, and that's unfortunate, and I send my deepest it's just unfortunate for something like that to happen, for somebody to even though it was a kind of a vengeful thing, where the person said, well, they were shooting at us first, and then we came back and we shot at them and everything. It was unfortunate that that kind of statement was made on TV, because if you shoot in front of a crowd, the possibility of you hitting someone, killing somebody, is enormous. So what we have now is we have a brain dead child and we have a dead child. So that kind of thing, you look at it and you say, well, what is in a person who feels so disrespected that they have to go back and get a gun to solve a problem and everything? And what was in the past that motivated him to do that? Because I don't think the situation started right there.
Nah.
See, the situation developed way before that time and everything. And who are the people who tried to intervene in that situation and try to solve it? Were there any people who tried to do? What did his sister try to intervene and say, hey, you don't need to do that. You don't need to go start shooting around a gang, not school children, and because you're going to kill somebody. Where was somebody to intervene in that situation and everything? And all too often, it doesn't happen and everything. And then, that would happen. That occurs.
Okay, I want to leave you with a question before I
And
jump
then
back
you'll
into
go. Okay, good.
that spin a rod and spanking. A lot of my audience know about.
Yeah.
But
And I don't mean to go on and on. I'm sorry
no,
about that.
it's good. I like to hear it. I like to hear it. But the question I have: do you think most of the young people that are out there doing these violent acts, do you think they have a care for human life, or do you think they have a fear of God? I'm gonna leave you with that.
Sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Now, spin a rod, spoiling a child. I have always heard, and maybe I grew up in a violent family. I don't know. I don't see it, but my father, he would chastise me. He would use paddling or spanking.
Mhm.
And nowadays, people are saying that that's child abuse.
Mhm.
You know, but it helped me. It helped me learn respect and discipline. Although I don't think it really had to go that far, but probably for my brother or some other member of my family, that probably was something that was needed. Is it wrong to spank our children?
Well, that's a lot. That's a question that a lot of people are asking, and a lot of people have very strong opinions on, because the spare the rod, spoil the child. Everybody knows that phrase, and many people um, believe in spanking, partly because that's the way they were brought up. And many institutions have held that belief. I think this society still as a whole believes that you need corporal punishment in order to raise your children right. But first of all, spare the rod, spoil the child. That phrase is misused because it goes back to the Bible. And in the time that it was written in the Bible, a rod did not mean a stick. A rod meant, it was a stick of wisdom, like the staff of Moses or whatever. So what it means, literally, if you take it from when it was written, what it was meaning to say was, if you spare the rod of wisdom, you spoil the child. Okay? But we've taken it as
step beyond.
differently. We've interpreted differently and have used that.
Mhm.
But spoiling a child is not because parents don't use corporal punishment. Spoiling a child occurs when a parent treats a child inconsistently, when the parent does not pay attention to the child and allows the child free rein, or tries to make up for the lack of emotional support or attention by giving material things. You know, they'll dress them up in the best of clothes, and they'll always have money in their pocket, but maybe when they come home, their parents aren't around.
So they like substitute.
So it's a substitute. Or a child pulls a temper tantrum at age 2, we talked about. And what mom and dad do is they give it to them. They give it to them. They give them what they want. They give them the candy bar, and the next they want you know, a doll, and the next they want a Nintendo, and so they learn to do it that way because they didn't have limits set. But you don't need to set limits by spanking. There are other ways to do that. And what our parents did was basically based on what they knew, and they were doing the best that they could. And I think spanking, if you're talking about, spanking has a nice cutesy connotation. If you're talking about, you know, a hit on the behind with open hand as a last resort, or a little smack on the hand, that is not going to do irreparable damage. It's not beneficial, but it's not going to do irreparable damage.
Right.
But when we talk about spanking, what most people are doing, they're not doing the open hand. That the people that use corporal punishment, they are using objects, because objects don't hurt as much as the hand. That as a child gets older, they increase the strength of the spanking, because they still see their child not doing what they want them to do. Because what they don't understand is that spanking is actually a very inadequate way to manage behavior. So they feel that they need to do it more and more. Most parents do not abuse their children, even if they spank them occasionally. If they're not using objects, if they're not leaving bruises and causing internal damage and whatever, they're not causing irreparable damage in their children. Or emotional scars. I don't want to say irreparable, because even people that have been severely abused can come out of it. But that on the whole, there are other ways to parent your children to manage behavior that don't involve spanking, because spanking really is what you're doing is you're trying to get the child to do what you want them to do, which may be very important what you want them to do, that they need to clean the room, they need to go to school, they need to do this, they need to do that, that those things are important, but that there are other ways to get them to do that, because what they do is they instill fear, and fear is not the same thing as respect. Okay. And when they do it abusively, children, they internalize that fear and anger and resentment, and they do not project it onto the parent, because the parent is that's their parent, and children psychologically cannot think badly of their parents. So they project it, they displace it onto others. And if that goes on, if that becomes excessive and really abusive, they begin to displace that anger and resentment onto society. That's why you see teenagers being violent, maybe starting out with abusing animals and then going on to you know, violent delinquent behavior. That there's been studies done that show that children that have been severely punished, there's a high correlation with that and violent juvenile delinquency. And part of what's going on is that they're displacing their anger and their resentment in the home onto society, which goes along with what he was saying in terms of, you know, you're in a world, an environment where there's very little opportunity. You're very poor. You don't have a lot of supervision, support. You witness violence in the streets. You see friends, family, other people, neighbors being killed or raped or hurt, and there's not a lot of hope for you. And especially if you come from a violent home or where there's substance abuse, you're having a lot of difficulties as a child because you're not getting the support you need. So then your chances of having those things like BMWs and Acuras and jewelry seem to you much more far away. And then you see the one way you can do it, where you don't have to go to school because you can't handle school, you know, it's there, right. and it's the only way you can get your self-esteem because you don't have very much.
Okay, all right. Now, I mean to cut you off. Catherine, can you speak on it? Sorry to keep you on hold, but she was saying something very interesting. Catherine, can you speak on it, please?
That's okay. Are you hearing me?
Yes, I hear you loud and clear.
Okay, I'm a mentor for young people at Miami Beach Senior High. I'd like really for someone to explain this drive-by shooting, what it's all about. And there's another thing, a lot of young people tell me that they rather to go and sell drugs than go into Burger King or McDonald's to work because it's only $4.25, and that they have to work so hard, and that it's easier to sell drugs. That they make more money and a quicker money. And I want someone to explain, you know, why the children of today is, you know, thinks that selling drugs is better than going in McDonald's or Burger King to you know, to work to get an honest, you know, dollar. And also, society is telling us, the parents today, that you can't punish your children when they do something wrong. But when I was growing up as a child in my time, our parents, when we did something wrong, they'd punish us. And I'm happy today that I was punished for the things that I did wrong, even it wasn't that bad. But I'm happy today that because it you know, the person I am today, I could teach other people, you know, what it's all about. I feel that if a parent punish a child when the child do something wrong accordingly,
Okay, well, she got cut. Sorry about that, Catherine. Maybe you can call back.